Hi, and welcome, everyone. My name is Lisa Oswald, and I'm the Awake channel for the workspace of Pleiadian Great Light. This podcast is a reading from the chapter Polarity and Mood Swings in Book 4, which is all about the ancient and long forgotten chakra systems we really need to know about at this time. As with all the books in our series, the information, wisdom, and energy transmissions go far deeper than just words alone, because these messages are embedded with universal light and awake energy. They are profoundly meant to encourage you to notice more of who you truly are, which is much, much more than the mind can tell you. This information is highly relevant at this exact moment on the earth. So let's begin. Chapter 38. Polarity and Mood Swings. Quote from Pleiadian Great Light. There are no mysteries about life. End quote. Question. People are angry about how governments are being run, climate change, and social change. There's so much polarity, and it seems to be getting bigger on the earth. If that were true, if the polarity was increasing, then people would be able to see the differences even more sharply between the different energies. Sometimes it serves a purpose by making it even clearer what kind of energy you want to choose to manifest at that time. It has a good point. It has a process of illumination. Don't worry that you or others feel like you're getting caught up with this energy, because they're just observing that change in themselves as well. This is a process of self-reflection. Everyone is thinking right now, should I be angry? Should I be compassionate? Should I be peaceful? Or should I be mad for a minute? Everybody is thinking, and it's okay. That's the way of the self. That's the way the self is exercising its choices to experience itself differently. We tend to jump on the judgment bandwagon very quickly and evaluate energy as polarities of good and bad, right and wrong. We're not saying those things aren't there for us to interpret. We're saying there's something else going on, something bigger on another level, on the level of ourselves. This energy can always be brought back into your own experience. That's the trick here. These are all big things going on, and they entertain the mind. So come back to who you are. Come back to that level of inspiration where you can find it. Come back to your own experience of who you are, and let the polarities sort themselves out. They will and do all the time. Polarities are just what we see happening on the level of the mind. There's much more happening that's on the level of our own interesting interaction with our own energy, and that's much more entertaining. So you can switch your ideas of entertainment from the TV and radio to something closer to home, to your own energy. All these other things are mostly a bit distracting and entertaining on the level of the mind, along with some compassion. So does that help? Question. Are there alternative frameworks that would break the habits of these polarized perceptions? An alternative framework exists within our own hearts. Noticing the parts of ourselves is part of the polarity signature we send outwards from ourselves that we use to gather the information that requires judgment. It needs some structure and is looking for some answers. How is it that we are not noticing ourselves? We're moving too much in that kind of looking around of the gathering of information that's important. We qualify in some way so we can appreciate different flavorful sides of the same story. This is a story as old as time, and it's not going beyond that. This is a little talk about time, because polarity exists in timeless swings of itself. It's noticed that way because it's noticed swinging itself. It takes on characteristics and qualities of itself, noticing back and forth more than anything else, and more than any other point of view of itself. In order to notice back and forth, it has to make some judgments on the reference point and also on where that swing is going. When we call something good or not good, when we notice male on one side and the opposing counterpart over here, then we can call that a polarized view of ourselves, moving in that timeless swing of life. We're not saying it's not a proper viewpoint, but where is the reference point for watching a swing like that? Where could that be? The answer is in that timeless swing of ourselves caught up somewhere on the web of our own noticing and our own designing. Somewhere in that web seems to create a reference point that equals the intensity of the viewpoint, and that's what makes it swing whatever intensity we bring to that moment. That could be an observation of ourselves, someone else, situational, or interactiveness between people. It could be that energy causes us to look at something as equal, if not more noticed than when we plant ourselves back from it. We notice ourselves somewhere in this picture, so we feel a distinctive quality between what seems to be ourselves in motion and that someone or situational interaction. It is a way of separation. It's natural in the sense that we are swinging in that timeless sense of ourselves. It's not so natural to notice the swing without placing yourself in some important viewpoint that can come forward with that swing. So the seeming polarity and the two reference points are blended a little bit more, so we don't notice such a big swing. There is going to be some swing, not necessarily the opposite, but just noticing different points of view. This simplest form of polarity observation, which is just noticing where you are and where that view is in the web-like structure, is emotionally bonded. Emotional baggage is being carried along in the viewpoint that creates a noticing of separation of any sort. Not that there isn't uniqueness, separation, and distinctive qualities at work here in creation. There are. Stirring that noticing, such as when we find some movement within ourselves, creates the vantage point of movement of that noticing, but not so much in the web-like structure at that moment anymore. That web-like structure is actually a framework of beliefs. It is very big and it encompasses the universe. We're not going to recreate this web-like structure of beliefs because it is there for a purpose. It's an operational perspective of our own self. What we can do, however, to prevent that polarity from taking over our sense of right and wrong, is just accept that in this flow of this swing between ourselves and someone else, there's something else there to be noticed, as well as the distinction of separation. We're also talking about separation and where that separation is, where it begins, and much more. How can we say there is good here, feminine here, male here, life here, no life there, hard and soft? Those are qualities of life itself being expressed. Even energy seems to have a polarity viewpoint, high, low, and middle ground. How could that be? This is because some reference point has been noticed. That will continue, but with the ability to sing your own song in this, that stretches out the knowingness of the actuality of the energy that's being moved by yourself rather than outside along those threads of that belief, that web-like structured framework. Then the reference point is subtle awareness. The reference point is subtle knowledge of these things, more than the ultimate grip of the sense of distinctive swinging, of separation points that we naturally find ourselves into for some reason. Polarity is interesting. It's a word that's not used very much in our own sense. If you think hard about yourself, where do you really locate a sense of polarity? What does it look like? And what does it feel like? It's hard to say, but it might be like bumping up against someone else sometimes, or some belief system crashing and clashing. We're used to noticing polarity as something out here, some field out here. Some kind of polarity is very difficult to find inside our bodies and ourselves, except if we're judging our own activities in some way that's uncalled for to do that. We can be more comfortable. We can be more at home with ourselves without that kind of reference point being fully operational. In our own sense of ourselves, we can intercept that kind of message with a little bit more of a loving look at ourselves. It's a little bit of a mood. It's that mood that sets the tone at work, home, or play. It's a little bit of a look at ourselves and our moods. Moods swing very fast and hard. Somehow we interpret that as some sense of right and wrong, good and not good, that whole storyline. The big swings that moods are part of in that noticing of themselves. Noticing ourselves in those moods is part of the knowledge of what is left out of the picture of polarity. Polarity is a little magnetic. We feel that attraction. We feel and notice the repelling quality too. Repelled, attracted, liked, disliked, and all the big ones like up and down. Is that the way energy manifests itself? Not quite. When we feel ourselves drawn into the mood of noticing those sorts of swings in ourselves with others, we can come back and take a breath And for a moment, we can realize how interesting that could be if we noticed something more happening with that interaction and our own perspective qualities. What more could they notice? As an exercise, we can ask ourselves, what more could I be aware of right now? Then something else comes along that jars that. It's like a little reminder to ourselves, as if we got our fingers stuck in a jar. What do we do now? We add some soapy water mixture so it slips out. We're just noticing that in that tricky mood that comes along with that separation of our own noticing out here instead of in here, we can make it a little more tricky for that mood to find its big noticing swing. We can laugh about it when we see it. We can notice that it's a part of ourselves, and we can let that go in the energy of ourselves. We can appreciate how much we're noticing. Even in a mood, there may be 100 different wavelengths, not just one. It's pretty hard to separate out all of those wavelengths in a single moody moment. So we can laugh about how hard it would be to find them all. Laughter relaxes our own separation anxiety we have in ourselves and lets that room of our own choice find some balance. Lots of times in that polarity view, we may have been looking for some real wisdom that could balance the fulcrum of that swing. We could notice something beautiful that is hinging, that swinging back and forth. Noticing polarity is a wise look at ourselves, but there's even more wisdom hiding out there than we might realize. In that balancing of ourselves, somewhere in that swing of our noticing, is our deepest heart and our deepest sense of who we are as happy. Happy swings create a lack of noticing the big view of polarity that mentions to others the differences between each other, ourselves, and all that we are. It's easy to notice the swing back and forth where it begins, and the cutoff point when I step over my territory. It's easy to notice the idea where comfort begins and discomfort ends with the person. It's easy to find all of that stuff, but not so easy to look really deeply past the mood of choice and find some spark of ourselves. Why would we choose ourselves at that moment? That's the fulcrum point. Automatically, that mood is shifted in a powerful way, because that's the natural way of it. It's not natural to just be with that swing of separation points between ourselves and our loved ones, acquaintances included. That fulcrum point is deep within our heart of hearts. That jewel, that crystal, and that resonation point that moves, that noticing pendulum. Some kind of force is there at work that does not know polarity at all. Let's bring some of that interaction into that picture of polarity, so we don't just forget who is noticing and who wants to be that polarity. Polarity and the polarization of ourselves are natural. Even the earth has magnetic ups and downs, ins and outs, vortexes here and there, forces at work identifying its opposites and how they work together. It's a whole science and body of interesting information. Polarity is quite real. It's just how moody we want to get about it. How much we want to be moody about in our swings with each other is fine for a while, and then we get tired of it. It tires us out to just notice that polarity. Then we quickly shift and find a different point on that swing. Even more polarity or a little bit less. But we always choose a different point in that swing of ourselves. We are mentioning this so we might, on occasion, find in our heart of hearts that little sparkle of information that awakens and rekindles some new interactiveness in that swing. It could be something different that gives us a bigger view of the swing in motion, something that recognizes what that motion does, so we don't feel the mystery of our life. There are no mysteries about life. That's polarity at work also. Big mysteries seem to demand answers, both unknown and known. Where we find ourselves in that is a mood of wanting to know, not know, wanting it to be and not be. They are all big, moody swings. Passion and lack of passion. Almost all moods, except for some magnetic forces which we interact with, also without our full knowing it, and without our full awareness of magnetic currents around ourselves, around the earth, and around each other. Those get caught in moody swings as well, and we can notice them too, and we can notice a lot more. Some of this is instinctive noticing, some we may not notice, and some of it wants to be understood as we notice. That's good and is part of questioning with knowingness, so we don't create polarity when we ask a question to ourselves. We don't create polarity. When we ask a question to ourselves, we use insight and drop in some knowingness so that even in that question, we don't create polarity with no big answer, or you need an answer. Those are two ends of the swing again. We've got the question, or the tip of it, or something reassuring to ourselves. Sometimes the polarity gets so big that we think we don't know anything about who we are. Then, the next day, we think we know a lot, and then we don't know anything again. How could that be? It's a mood. Our moody selves at work. That's okay. We can recognize that kind of energy, searching and noticing for its own look at itself from a different shift. It's appreciated very much to bring in that noticing to the swing of life force. Life force is powerful, and that's why you feel it's such a big deal to notice differences. There is a lot of power in that. But what kind is it? There's a lot of power to be understood about that kind of look. It's energized, but with what? It's often a painful load of looking at ourselves because it's a partial view. It may seem that if we just knew the opposite, we would see and have the full view. We're quite sure of that. So if we can know everything from here to there, everything will be okay. But it doesn't work that way. We will not be satisfied in that course of understanding who you are, and we will not find much peace in noticing here to there, because that is a big distance to look at. We'll miss points, and then the mind will know that and keep you there. The mind will ask to have the story repeated again, and the mind will continue to develop searching for how big a swing it can make it look like. We can notice that happening sometimes. Now everybody can notice that it's a little painful because suddenly the mind gets cleared up quite a bit. The mind gets refreshed and says, "Wow, what was I doing?" And that's okay, because we can know there's some wisdom there. Otherwise, the mind gets tired because there's not a lot of manifestation of unique energy discovery happening, or this kind of looking at the full spectrum. We want that to be the full story so badly. We want that to be all that we are, and that's also wrapped up in this polarity view. As we notice that swing, we find ourselves looking less at the degrees of the swing and feel instead the refreshing pauses that exist in those gaps of ourselves. That's where it gets interesting, because that's energy movement flow, and it's not swinging in any direction anymore. It's ultimately directionally unhampered by any interpretiveness about yourself, or anyone, or any circumstance. It is the why that is waking up when we notice that swing, and that's why it's the end of the mystery, because there is an understanding of all of these mechanisms. We know what they mean, and we fully comprehend what they do for us, but we're not sure we can say it because we're trained to think in that full spectrum from here to here. When we think about ourselves like that, or anyone, or anything else, or circumstances, places included, then we miss the ability to know how it swings, the why, the how, and our interaction becomes less interpretive and more to the point, clear mind, clear knowingness, and the end of the mystery. Knowing and saying. We can't emphasize the saying part because it has been left out of this picture of ourselves for too long. We have relied on the picture of others and those words to describe the full spectrum, this swing, the unholy, the divine, and everything in between. All that we are is waiting and remains to be discovered by our own voice, because we already know all this. We already know all this. It's common knowledge. Nothing is unknown. There are no secrets. It's just that there is a little bit of feeling afraid to express what we know for some reason. It becomes easier as we notice ourselves clearly moving, and in that movement, language is released in some form to ourselves. That language release causes us to trigger our own understanding of how the swings take place. We all know everything about all of this already. We're keeping this from ourselves for some reason. Why? We don't know, but we don't have to keep this from ourselves any longer, because that's what time it is. That's what time it is. Timelessness is present in this moment, and every moment to know everything. Don't doubt because somewhere on this swing of the pendulum are the doubts gathered like seeds for birds, but not for the who that you came here to be known as. Let the birds pick them up. Doubts are shadows of wondering about why we came here. and we will never find a good answer to ourselves. That's why they are seed-like. They can't sprout, but they are irritating, and they are getting our attention on that swing. And for some reason, doubts come along. In that swing of ourselves, the full spectrum is part of the picture of all of us at work on this grid. There is no actual point of reference of individuality that exists in the swing of purpose itself noticing itself in the grid, on that grid, and with that grid. That is the shift out of polarity and into the harmonies that exist truly in the grid and off the grid today. Polarity helps the journey become what it is meant to be noticed as. You don't have to notice polarity to be in the noticing of that conditioning view of ourselves, because moods carry that out for us automatically. Moods swing to ourselves, noticing separateness qualities and characteristics of ourselves, and referential points of view. It's a big picture of the energy of ourselves that we gather to ourselves, and is not opposite to who we are unless we think that way. We are always noticing our own energy of our own awake. How could that be anything outside the structural framework of our own energy system? It is perfectly balanced already, and awake a little bit to notice that. Question: is the grid a huge system of everyone's beliefs? Yes, a system that works together to create a structure that hides a lot of the real nature of energy movement from our own viewpoint. At least that is how it seems some days, and other days it does not seem that way. Does that mean we step off the grid sometimes and notice more from inside this view? Yes. Sometimes we are really linked in through the moodiness of the big self out there, and drawing others into that also. It seems that there are linkages that aren't really there in that system, but they are created and called beliefs. That system is out there. That system of beliefs is not so much in here, except in that moody swing of ourselves. Then it seems like it is involved in us in some way, and noticing itself in some part of ourselves, in some movement of ourselves. The aura magnetic field around ourselves expresses some of this to others. Much of this has gone on for so long that it has created a mirror now that lots of conscious beings refer themselves to just out of habit. This mirror, substance-like structure, and this system of beliefs is here now. It is not real because you can step off of it. Question: where are you when you step off? Where are you when you step off? You were not ever there to begin with. That's duality. Thank you for listening. For more information about our books, audiobooks, YouTube videos, and much more, visit lisaoswald.com. Thank you for your support and encouragement to help get this information out into the world for all beings everywhere.